Thanks, Captain Stoddard. Really appreciate the opportunity. Just like she said, I really do see the value in this. 5,500 people, you guys are voting with your feet, if nothing else. So I want to first, again, formally thank the organizers. I'm going to talk for about 20 minutes. But just before I do that, let me give just a little more background in terms of who I am and why I think I'm right to talk to you about the value of this and why CDER understands the value of what you all are about. One of many things that I work with are some of the more complicated issues that face my center, the Center for Drugs, including controlled substances. I'll be co-chairing a meeting on cannabis on Friday if those of you that are bored and have time to get down to Washington. I also work on opioids. Combination products and I are working together. So I see the importance of finding ways forward in complicated developmental issues like those that confront us. And I understand the importance of new ideas and the importance of supporting them wherever we can. So I'm going to talk for about 20 or 25 minutes. I want to begin just by placing CDER in a broader context of where we are in the regulatory space and a little bit about what we do in a general sense, to remind you of where innovation and development sit with regards to our mission. And then I want to try to convince you that we get the importance of what you do. The importance of small businesses in innovation, the importance of supporting small businesses, and the work that the agency's done to achieve both of those two things. So, to begin with, the FDA is comprised of centers and offices. You can see this schematic here. Dr. Ned Sharpless is our acting commissioner, and you can see the Center for Drugs is is one of several centers at the bottom there. Each of us have our own missions. Each of us have our own staffs and our own sets of activities. For those of you that attended the combination products discussion last hour, you heard a little bit of the flavor of the complexities when the two centers are working together and the complexities of, honestly, the regulations within each of the centers. The mission of the center, the mission of the Food and Drug Administration is to protect the public health, assuring that foods are safe, ensuring that human and veterinary drugs and vaccines are safe and for intended use, protecting the public from electronic public product radiation, etc., etc. This is the thing that drives us. These are the things that lay out the work that we do on a day-to-day basis at the Food and Drug Administration level. So then, let's move to the Center for Drug Evaluation and Research, which is one of the largest centers within the larger FDA family, making up around 5,100 people, many of us out at a campus near DC. Importantly, about 3,000 of those individuals are professionals and scientists. I think there's sometimes a misunderstanding that the agency is comprised of people that largely are stamping yeses and nos on pieces of paper. In fact, there are enormous numbers of people with particular expertise, and you can see the numbers there. MDs, around 600 of them, pharmacologists, toxicologists, chemists, statisticians, etc. Importantly, and to Captain Stoddard's point, we've recognized the importance of the communications staffs and are working hard to build up that expertise as a profession within the larger family of the center. The director of my center, my direct boss, is Dr. Janet Woodcock. So what do we do? So we do a couple of different kinds of things. First, there is a core mission. We have a mission that Congress has given us to do pre-market review, product manufacturing quality, by which you think of making a drug consistently to a high product quality time after time, and then consumer and patient safety, by which you think about assessing a product before it goes on the market for safety and then continuing to watch that product as it's marketed, as we come to understand its potential risks in populations while it's on the market, and make whatever changes. And you see the news fairly frequently that we've made a labeling update or we've required additional studies to be done to understand the safety of a product like that. These are the things that the largest fraction of our people work on. They're our core mission. They're the things that the Congress has put us in place to do. They're the things that drive development. The pre-market review is where our innovation occurs. It's It's the staffs in the different therapeutic divisions, cardiovascular drugs, pulmonary drugs, anti-infectives division, whatever, that are developing the products, working with you all to bring them to market. There is another really important part, though, and it's important for today, and it's, I think, the most important part for the discussion we're going to have. And the other part of our mission, which is to protect and promote the availability of safe and effective new drugs, is to promote the availability of safe and effective new drugs. That promotion requires work with the outside groups that are working to do the innovation, to create the novel products, to bring them to market, to do what we can to facilitate that work in any way that we can. And this slide goes through some of the various tools that we have available to us that the center can do to facilitate that drug development. We can help with infrastructure and tools. Tools, think of surrogates, think of scientific ways to do trials more quickly, more cost effectively, get answers more quickly. We can encourage collaboration. Meetings like this, meetings between academics and other things that we participate in, find ways to move science forward, again, with an idea towards identifying innovation and bringing a product to market quickly. We can help support data standards and regulations. I think that's fairly straightforward. The more clear the pathway to development, the easier it is for you to walk it. The more efficient it's going to be, the lower the cost, it's going to happen more quickly. Building support with academic science, again, that's just an important part of all of the work that we do. We, like you, are fundamentally science-based. We need to develop that science and support it in any way that we can, and then share it where possible, whether we create a database or we find a way to share data between ourselves and the public. More data available for innovation is going to make it possible for new products to come to market more quickly. So, core mission, and then an important additional mission for us to help innovation, to support it in any way that we can, recognizing that it's the important next step in terms of products development. How do we support innovation? I'm going to come back to this a little bit later on, but we support it in a great many ways, but one of the ways we support it is through process. And under certain circumstances, we can accelerate the processes that we apply to products as they come to market to make more resources available to a product, hopefully speeding development, hopefully getting answers more quickly, bringing them to market. This slide just shows 4 of those tools: breakthrough designation, fast track, priority reviews, and accelerated approval. And the pie chart shows the fractions of the drugs, the recent approvals that used those authorities. So, for instance, priority review shortens the amount of time that my review staff have to review your application when you submit it to us. So a completed application comes in, a normal application, you get 10 months. A priority review says that you have some product that merits a shorter time for us to review it. We need to devote more resources to it, bring it to market more quickly. In this case, almost 75% of the products we've approved recently made use of that, recognizing their importance in terms of a therapeutic sense or in terms of greater safety, some potential advantage that made it important for us to commit those resources to bring it to market more quickly. Fast track is another thing that speeds the interactions with the agency and can get you answers more quickly. It's a thing that we use quite often to help bring innovative new products. Under review doesn't guarantee the answer is going to be a yes. It guarantees that we're going to bring additional resources to bear to determine what the right answer is more quickly. The result of that kind of work, the result of working together in innovative ways, committing new resources like that, has been drug approvals. And obviously that's the metric that we all look to. It's the thing that you read about in the press in terms of numbers of drug approvals last year going up and down and whatever. Last year, 59 novel drugs were approved, either as new molecular entities or as new therapeutic biologics, which is a separate class of product. 7 new biosimilars, a growth area for us, someplace that we think is terribly important, that we're devoting resources to. Office of Generic Drugs, for the first time, approved over 1,000 new generic products. I think we all acknowledge the important role that the generic drug space plays in drug availability at a reasonable cost for the American public. It's important for us to remember those products and bringing those products to market are a terribly important part of the work that we do. And as you can see, first generics, that is, first new generics made up about 10% of those 2018 approvals. We think that's an important metric when we think about cost and containing it for the American public. Some of the products, and really you can go online and look at the list of 59 products. Some of the products were particularly important. So we brought the first product derived from something called cannabidiol, a molecule that's found in the cannabis plant, to market to treat resistant childhood seizures. And these are children that had hundreds and hundreds of seizures a day, resistant to 2 and 3 other anti-epileptic medicines. Really terrible life, and cannabidiol seems to have efficacy in that area. It's an important therapeutic. We're proud to have been able to bring that to market. We brought a whole new class of agents on for patients suffering from migraines, something that we obviously know affects millions of Americans. We approved our first drug for smallpox. Most of us in this room don't remember smallpox as a thing. I still have my little scar on my arm as a child. But the fact of the matter, it still does exist. It's a terribly important disease, and developing new agents for it where it was important. We were able to do that using what's called the animal rule, which is a different part of our regulation that allows us to approve products without human testing when those products can't be tested ethically or safely in humans. And now let's turn to small businesses, because the fact of the matter is all of that innovation that I talked about is in part being led by the small businesses, by the individuals working in companies with fewer than 500 employees. So here's the important metric. 1 drug in 5 that came to the market in the last 10 years is because of one of those small businesses. So because of that innovation, because of those groups finding the resources, taking a chance, we have an important new set of products that we've brought to the market. The majority of those companies, 90% of them, had not brought a product to market previously. So they were somebody's called them one-hit wonders. They were focusing on a very small portfolio, maybe 1 drug, maybe 2 drugs, and bringing it to market. And the results have been very good. I didn't create a slide of some of the important drugs that we've approved that came from this particular cadre. But fact of the matter is they are innovative products. They are important products in the therapeutic armamentarium. So as a leader of the Center for Drugs, when I see that statistic, it says it's really terribly important for us to do what we can to support small businesses, to do what we can to support their work, recognizing that there are challenges that they're going to have to be facing. They're going to work on new formulations of old drugs. Naloxone is a product that's been in the news a lot to treat opioid overdose. And we've brought 2 new formulations of naloxone on the market in the last 5 years. Terribly important, and providing support for that kind of reformulation work for small businesses is essential. Small businesses take a chance on over-the-counter medication development. Again, another different part of the drug space that we know is very important for consumers. They're often developed in drug-device combinations. I hope some of you were able to hear the talk that was just before this one. Highly complicated area of drug regulation, of drug device regulation. Christy and Jim Bertram did a great job. I hope you appreciate how challenging that space is. And so for a small business to take on innovation in that space, it's really incumbent on me. It's incumbent on my center to provide whatever support we can, recognizing the challenges that you guys are going to face. So small business has a lot of energy, a lot of innovative effort, and we need to do what we can to help. We also know that it is challenging, that there are, in fact, challenges with navigating those lists of meetings that you saw in James's and Christie's slides. deciding which ones to ask for, etc. It's just a small example of how challenging it would be to navigate the FDA, to know the right places to turn to get the help. So, scientific challenges, financial challenges, regulatory challenges. I don't need to tell this audience about the difficulties that can arise when you go to interact with the agency. Despite our best efforts, it is a complicated place, and you have little room for error. Drug development, medical products development requires clinical data, by and large. Manufacturing data on quality, obviously, when that becomes a problem, you're on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. You know that we've seen that with the sartans of late. Quality has become a very important thing for the public. Adverse event reporting after marketing is something that's a requirement for you that you're going to have to be thinking about early on in development. Promotion is something that gets into the news, especially if you use it in inappropriate ways. Fact of the matter is, this is an area where there is little room for error, and anything that we can do to help is important to try to reduce the risks of some of those things. So, the good news is, from my perspective, the center recognized that, and Captain Stoddard and the rest of the group have been working for years at finding ways to build resources for small businesses to provide that help. This is just the Small Business Assistance website. I'm sure you have this. You should be able to go there and get a lot of information, a lot of help that can help guide you. They do a lot. They do a lot to help small businesses, and they're genuinely interested in helping you succeed. They want to help. They want to help you navigate those long lists that you saw in the combination products discussions, to give you the best advice that they're able to. 2018, 9,700 inquiries to that group alone. A group of, I don't know, Captain Stoddard, 10 people, something like that you have in your group. Small number of people, enormous number of inquiries. I think reflecting both interest in this area and their willingness and interest in helping you to the fullest extent they can. Whether it's deciding who to send a submission to, referring you to combination products, to the jurisdictions officers, helping you identify who best to contact within the center around pricing or around generics review or some other complex element of drug regulation. Information on potential economic incentives. We have to acknowledge, everybody knows that's an important element of product development. Product development is not a cheap thing to do, and those incentives exist for a reason. Congress has made them available. It's important for you to be aware of them and take advantage of them to the extent that you can. And then the accelerated pathways that I mentioned before. They can and do speed development. They can and do make a difference in terms of medical products development when you have the data, when you meet the criteria that have been set up for them. So these are some of the accelerated development pathways. The one that's in the news most often, I would say, is breakthrough designation. This is the newest of the 4 accelerated development pathways. And I describe it as an all-hands-on-deck approach. So every Wednesday from 9 till 11, the senior leadership in my center, including myself, including my boss, including both of the other deputy center directors, the head of the Office of New Drugs, and all of the other offices within them, sit down and talk about the breakthrough designations. We review the applications for breakthrough designations and decide whether or not they're appropriate, whether or not to grant them. Breakthrough designation basically says this is a product that has real potential to change the game, real potential to be fundamentally different than the available therapies, such that it merits us doing everything that we can. That means meetings more often. That means resources that are otherwise not available all of the time. Really doing anything that we can to find a way to decide whether or not the promise of that product is real or not. And if it is real, to move that product to market as soon as possible. 22 of those were awarded in 2018, recognizing, 22 have been awarded so far in 2019, recognizing the robustness of this particular pathway. The other pathways are similarly important to us, are ingrained in our culture. And my reviewers now understand that they're an important element as they talk to sponsors about product development. They're an important part of that conversation. SBIA is also working by providing information. If you remember my innovation slide, I talked about the things that we need to do as a center to help to help promote novel products development, and one of the things was information sharing. Meetings like this, meetings on targeted subjects like generics or complex generics, webinars where individuals can watch later or online to get information. All of these things are ways for us to share our best practices as we've identified them with you, with a goal of helping make your product development more efficient, more timely, obviously more successful to the fullest extent possible. And you can see 174 messages and 6 articles. It's print, it's every form of education, but putting that information out for you all to make use of. The net result is our agency and you are better equipped to handle the big challenges before us. And in the last few minutes, I just wanted to highlight a few of them. The challenges before the medical enterprise, and I mean that the regulators, I mean that to be the developers, I mean that to be the public health officials, I mean that to be the hospitals and the people that are taking the patients as well as the patients, are large and complex. They fall into many buckets, and we could talk a long time about the things that we're going to have to solve together. CDER is modernizing our new drugs approach. We need to find a way to reorganize new drugs and how we're developing those products to be maximally efficient. We need to be streamlining wherever we can. We've heard from the outside, and we understand that fundamentally the clinical trials paradigm, the way we're doing clinical trials, is inefficient and needlessly complex. And then we need, as an enterprise, to talk about ways to do that better. That's going to require a fundamental realignment in terms of how we think about medical product development, how it fits into the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 that I'm sure all of you have heard about, and what changes we need to do to really reinvigorate the clinical trials enterprise. And fundamentally, it's not fit for purpose at this point. Too expensive, too needlessly complex. We've got to find a way to make it better. And then, as a small point, we need to decide how to use real-world evidence in a regulatory framework. We all know real-world evidence exists. For us, we need to decide how to bring that into the regulatory decision-making. When can I make use of RWE in a regulatory way to change a label, add an indication, identify a safety challenge? Complicated question, enormous amount of new data that we need to get our hands around. We also need to do, as I've said before, everything we can to advance new product areas. And I highlight combination products. Someone once said to me, drug plus device equals the future. So that when we think of the future of therapeutics, this individual's view, they were going to be wrapped up in complex products, particularly products that combine drugs and devices or biologics and devices, in ways that we can't even imagine right now. And that requires a rethinking of our regulatory frame. I think it requires a rethinking of our developmental frame. It requires an additional thought in terms of how the medical products are going to be delivered to patients, paid for, lots of conversations that need to happen. And then the last bucket, and it is the bucket that we all have to remember, is there are public crises that are going on. The opioids crisis is the public health crisis of our generation. And it's not the last controlled substance crisis. After opioids is going to come stimulants, and after stimulants will come some other sort of crisis related to controlled substances. We've got to find a way to manage that crisis, address that ongoing challenge. Drug shortages is another critical challenge for us. They're another element of my portfolio, and we simply have to find a way to reduce the numbers of drug shortages that we're seeing. They're affecting patients, they're affecting patient care, access to medicines in a way that we really need to find a solution for. And then compounding is something that's been in the news. That the concerns that people have voiced about small groups of individuals that may not be doing that in the way that we want it to. Fundamentally, each of these three things, public health crises, new product areas that are complicated, policy issues that confront us all, are just highlights of the kinds of things we need to do as a group. As a part of that work, the center's role is to make sure that you all have the information you have to make the innovation, to do the new products development. Our job is to put in place those processes to support that development to the fullest extent possible. A small point, just to remind you that the SBIA is not the only source of information. As you look for information, it's important to be talking to the divisions and things that are going to be making the regulatory decisions. They obviously have product-specific information that they can and do share, a separate kind of a role, separate kind of process, but it's just essential that you continue to work with them very closely. So I'm going to summarize by thanking Captain Stoddard and her group for allowing me to come and talk to you. Innovation is a part of what my center does. We get it, we understand its value, we understand how important it is to support it. We are in a transformational and challenging time in healthcare, whether it's product development or it's product delivery or the crises of when people misuse or abuse the products that we have on the market. The public is expecting us to meet those challenges, and they are big. We have to work together. We have to find those solutions. We understand the critical role the small business plays in those challenges, in meeting those challenges with novel products, novel ways of delivering them. And we've put in place programs that I believe really can help. Programs like this one, programs that you can reach out to Captain Stoddard and her group and understand much better. I would ask you to challenge her. I would ask you to challenge me. If you can't get an answer, keep asking. Our job is to help you succeed. The job of this group is particularly centered on helping you to succeed, but it is a central aspect of what I do when I come to work. I know I speak for the rest of my center when I say it is for them as well. And I thank you very much for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions I can.
All right, we are very fortunate in that Dr. Throckmorton does have some time to hang around for Q&A. Since this is our first Q&A session, I am going to take a second to lay down some ground rules. Those of you who are in the room, if you have questions, please come on up to the microphones that we have here. We'll be standing in line. We'll be taking turns. You get one question each. If you try to sneak in a second question, you buy lunch for everyone in the room. So keep an eye on anyone who tries to do that. For those of you online, if you have not already done so, down below my video here at the very bottom of the screen is the Q&A pod. You can start typing those questions in for Dr. Throckmorton. Please go ahead. Oh, that's a little tall. Let me go ahead and lower that for you. Go ahead.
Hi, Aruna. Thank you. Hi, Aruna, PharmaPro Consulting. You did touch upon priority review. Can you actually talk about what's the difference in the time frame from a regular review to a priority review, and the graph that you presented or the picture that you presented was extremely informational. Thank you.
Yes, so the short answer is 10 months for standard review, 6 months for priority review. That's the sort of draw. Go online and you can get the the specifics of that. Priority review is sometimes challenged when we need to take you to an advisory committee too, and we have to plan for an advisory committee in that abbreviated time frame. But the bottom line is that allows us time. That 6 months is the time that we give ourselves to make a recommendation, make a decision on marketing.
Thank you.
To the microphones. Let's take our first online question, please.
Thank you, Jeff. What is the expected impact of the new drug reorganization on submissions and approvals?
Divisions and the what? Sorry, could you say that last bit again?
The impact of the new drug reorganization on submissions and approvals?
I hope that it aids the numbers of both of those things. The reorganization's goal is to bring together some of the product divisions in more logical ways. And I can't get into any specifics, but what we've done is look back at the current divisions. There are 16 of them, I believe, and look to see which of them make sense given the current science, given the current directions that drug development is going. And so what we've noticed is some parts of Office of New Drugs are very busy. There are enormous numbers of novel products coming through. Those areas, we need to make sure they have all the resources they need. We need to make sure that they are staffed up and organized in an efficient way. And there are other places where there may not be the activity that I think we'd like. We need to decide what needs to happen to encourage those submissions, understand better what the sources of the reasons for that is, and that's fundamentally where the new drugs reorg is coming from.
All right. Microphone, nice close for me, please.
Since you're in the Boston area, the Boston Globe recently had an article about the proliferation of generic drugs, and about 90% of them are coming from overseas now. And they were highlighting a lot of the problems with the anti-rejection drugs that were not being actually effective for the people that were for heart transplants, etc. Are things being rushed a little bit too much on the generic drugs approval sides from overseas companies? So
let me answer that by reminding everyone how drugs come on the market and the quality requirements that we have for products to be on the market in the U.S. I think we're in a really privileged place. I think the American public has an expectation that the product that they're going to take is consistently manufactured to a high quality. And to achieve that, we have in place a set of testing requirements. Same testing requirements that exist for the generic industry that exist for the innovator industry. So before they can put a product on the market, they have a set of testing requirements that they have to meet, or the product can't be on the market. So while there are some parts of generics, in the same way there are parts of some innovator products that are made in other parts of the world, that doesn't mean they don't have to meet those testing standards. So if an active pharmaceutical ingredient is made in India, but the finished dosage, it still meets a set of requirements, and then there's another set of requirements they meet when the finished dosage form is created wherever it is, in France or in the US or whatever, and then put on the market. The location of the manufacturer doesn't matter for that. The standards are still in place.
Okay. Can we have another online question, please?
Are you able to speak to how CDER plans to review THC CBD-based combination products?
So, so that's an either really simple answer or a really complicated one. The short answer for CDER is yes. I can tell you exactly how CDER is going to review those products once they're designated as drugs and they're brought into my Center for Drug Evaluation and Research. That is, they're products that are intended to treat, diagnose, mitigate, or prevent a disease, and they're coming in to get a claim for one of those things. You come and you're designated a drug. Yes, I have a botanicals team that does product manufacturing and product quality. I have other teams available. I'm going to treat you like any other drug. I will treat you like any other drug. Antihypertensive, I don't care. That will be how you will be managed if you come to CDER. What I can't answer is if the product is intended for use as a food or as a dietary supplement or some other kind of a product that happens to contain cannabidiol or THC. THC would not be legal to have in that way. It is a controlled substance. That's a piece that we are talking about on Friday. That is something that we've not yet decided in terms of exactly the right answer. So, but for CDER, you want a drug, you come talk to us. We know how to help you develop that.
All right, we do have about 2 more minutes. If there's any questions in the room, come on up to the microphone, but let's please go ahead with our next online question.
Basically, what is the process for determining whether a prospective drug is eligible for priority review?
You know, I'm going to give you a general answer, but I'd really encourage you to go to the links that I included on my talk and look. There is a guidance that's laid out that basically lays out the criteria for each of those accelerated pathways. Fundamentally, the idea is that it has an advantage over existing therapy, whether that's an advantage of greater safety or an advantage of greater efficacy, such that we really believe it needs to be accelerated. We need to commit those additional resources to shorten up the time to review.
Okay. Any more online questions? I saw you move up from behind the table. Okay. And with that, please help me thank Dr. Throckmorton for coming and speaking with us today. And I'm actually,